What's older than we think? The first carbonated drink to be sold to the public was invented by Swiss watchmaker and amateur scientist J.J. Schwepp in 1783, who sold his delicious, sparkling water to thirsty customers in Geneva. In just 7 years, he was doing business so fast that he moved the factory to London and introduced a new flavor, sparkling lemon, to stand out from competitors who were trying to imitate his drink. Another related fun fact, seltzer and spa are where the bubbly water comes from. Prior to industrialization, the only way to get bubbly water was to get it from carbonated springs, two of the biggest which were in Niederselter and Spa, among others. The aux connector that we still use for headphones and speakers was invented in 1877. There have been improvements since, but the basics of it are pretty much the same. Beer is thought to be older than bread. It's much easier to fill a jar with wheat and water, let it ferment, and brew beer than it is to grind grain, mix it, and bake it. So you're telling me sliced bread is the greatest thing since beer? Huh. I remember reading or hearing somewhere that in ancient or medieval times, beer had a very low alcohol content and was very thick. It was essentially a dietary staple quite similar to the way bread is now. Sharks. As a species they're older than the rings of Saturn. Holy shit, I've heard of the tree thing, but this is new. Any sources? Just Google it really quick. Lol, rings of Saturn are 10 to 100 million years old, whereas we have found shark scales dating back 450 million years ago. Pretty crazy shit. Wristwatches. Queen Elizabeth I got one in 1571. National Geographic was founded in 1888, same year as Foster's and Jack the Ripper. I was really surprised to discover when Oxford University was founded. They don't know the year for sure, but they know there was definitely teaching going on there in 1096. Another commenter above said that Oxford isn't even the oldest university, but it's the most well-known. The fact that the lighter is older than the match shook my head as a kid. It also gave me the curiosity to question things that seems obvious. When you think about it, it makes sense. The lighter is a simple mechanical concept, some flammable gas and a spark. The match, on the other hand, is a complex chemical reaction. Matches are just way more complex than I thought as a kid. They aren't just a stick of wood. The electric car. What is likely the first human-carrying electric vehicle with its own power source was tested along a Paris street in April 1881 by French inventor Gustave Trouvé. The first crude electric car was built in the 1830s, but it was essentially a semi-functioning model. The electric car was a direct competitor to gasoline-powered vehicles until the 1920s, when roads got better, people started driving further than the range of an electric car, and the world started finding major oil reserves. Escalators have been around since 1859, though they were called rotating stairs. Yet the U.S. state of Wyoming still only has 2 of them. Granted, it's not like Wyoming has enough people to really need any more. Fax machines. They were invented in 1843. Before the telephone. Came for this one. To put this in perspective, tumbleweeds aren't native to the American Southwest, but by a quirk of history we know exactly which shipment of flax from Ukraine brought their seeds to the U.S. In 1877, commercial fax service has been around longer than tumbleweeds in the American Southwest. Sharks. Sharks as a family are older than trees. The oldest evidence puts sharks in an era where the only multicellular plant was algae. The ancient Romans, well, the wealthy ones, had central heating in their homes. You can actually still see the pipes in some of the buildings at Herculaneum. What I think is really cool from Herculaneum is that we're able to recover writing from the libraries there. The pyroclastic flow didn't turn the papyrus to ash, it preserved in a very damaged state. But thanks to lasers we can see the words that were once visible on the pages. Flushing toilets date all the way back to the Indus River Valley civilization, back in 2000 BC. Ancient Minoans had hot and cold running water and an extensive sewage system. Romans had pipe-heated floors, something I still thought was awesome when my aunt got it like a decade ago. Oreos. I was shocked to learn that Oreos predate chocolate chip cookies, sliced bread, and my 100-year-old great-grandmother. You're going to make me Google the year, aren't you? 1912 for those wondering. Whoa, Oreos predate insulin. Makes sense. And before Oreos, there was Hydrox. And before Hydrox, there was the dark times. The name Tiffany. It dates back to the 12th century, and has actually led to a thing in writing called the Tiffany problem, because you can have a well-researched historical novel that people just don't buy into, because you named your 12th century peasant Tiffany. It just sounds laughably anachronistic. Nintendo. This company was actually created in 1889. Nintendo was founded in 1889. Van Gogh painted Starry Night in 1889. Adolf Hitler was born in 1889. Edit. Some additions from the comments. 1. Eiffel Tower opened in 1889. 2. North Dakota became a state in 1889. 3. Pizza was invented in 1889. I don't know if this counts, but dinosaurs lived on the Earth a lot longer than most people think. When you think of dinosaurs, you think of their extinction, but they roamed the Earth for 165 million years. Compare that to our 6 million and it's almost mind-boggling. We are farther from the release date of the first Back to the Future movie than Marty was from 1955. Social media. Wealthy ancient Romans had a system where they used slaves as scribes and messengers in order to share gossip and art, poetry and news updates with friends in their social circle. Augustus. Call slave. I want to share this joke with Pontiatus. Prefect Tiberius. You have been tagged in the public forum in a mosaic of the drunken revelries on the Lupercal. Quote. Considering that people are people, there's some good chances that this exact exchange happened quite a few times. If that doesn't count as social media, then in the late 1800s, all train telephone operators for trains were connected to each other by telephone and, if there were no trains coming, they could talk to each other as much as they wanted. Some people even fell in love with the operator on the other side of the phone and arranged for actual weddings across the other side of the country. Some, of course, had virtual weddings, but I'm not even sure how that would work in that time. A lot of modern tech is much older than we think. Stonehenge. It predates the oldest pyramid in Egypt by nearly 300 years. Ancient Egyptians who built the pyramids. The ancient Egyptians were as old to the ancient Romans as the ancient Romans are to us. Cleopatra is chronologically closer to us than she is to when the pyramids were built. Woolly mammoths were still alive during the construction of the Great Pyramid of Giza. They died out about a millennium after its completion. Netflix. I feel like it is only a few years old, but it was invented in 1997. I remember getting DVDs by mail from Netflix. I have been a continuous subscriber since 1997, before the streaming service even began. Contact lenses. Leonardo da Vinci had the idea of contact lenses in 1508 and the first successful contact lenses were made in 1888. In so many fields, he was way ahead of his time. The guy truly was a visionary. He literally invented a diving suit and a paraglider long before they were actually invented. Scientists even tested whether his designs worked as intended, and they did. It's insane how far ahead of his time he was.